All right, it's 11:01. Let's get started. We don't have too much on the agenda today, so we should have time for other agenda items or discussion with the OpenZFS Developer Summit. We announced the OpenZFS Developer Summit. Hopefully you saw an email or a tweet or something about that. It's going to be November 4th and 5th this year, and registration is open, and the call for papers or presentations is open. I would love to hear from every one of you about what cool stuff you're building into ZFS or building with ZFS, or any of your other thoughts related to ZFS and the community in a presentation at the conference. So send me an email with your presentation proposal. You have until August 19th, so that's a little bit less than 1 month to send me what you want to present on at the conference. For those who haven't been before, the conference is 2 days. The first day is presentations to the whole group in a kind of auditorium room, and then the second day is probably we'll have some shorter, more informal presentations and discussions in the morning, and then we'll have a hackathon where you have a chance to work with folks that you might only know from this call on some little enhancement or thing that's bugged you about ZFS. And the goal is kind of have something to show for it. It doesn't have to be done, and this is not a work all night long kind of hackathon. It's just a few hours that we'll have to throw something together. Maybe it's a proof of concept, or maybe it's just researching something and coming up with a more concrete proposal or design. And the conference will be at the same location as last year. So the first day is going to be at the Children's Creativity Museum, and the second day is going to be at the Delphix San Francisco office. What other details? Any other details that I'm missing, Karen? We still have sponsorship opportunities, but thanks a ton to our sponsors that have already signed up: Datto, Delphix, Intel, OS Nexus, Nexenta, and OpenDrives. Anything else, Karen? Logistics that we should announce?
Nope, that's it. Registration's open. There's information on the wiki page as well as the email that Matt sent.
Cool. Any questions or comments about the conference?
Video will be available?
Yeah, we will definitely have video recordings that'll be posted afterwards, and the live streaming, probably. We've always had live streaming in the past, so I think unless we have a budget crunch, we will have live streaming this year as well. I see Karen nodding.
And for hackathon?
For the hackathon, we will probably have recording, and maybe live streaming. That's always been like we don't have that done professionally. At least we haven't.
It's usually like Matt's phone.
Yeah, so we've been able to kind of hack it together.
Live streaming will be much more better.
It's also because it's in our office. The AV is a little iffy. So anyway, just don't have very high hopes for the hackathon.
Yeah. Have low expectations, and hopefully we will be able to exceed them for the hackathon video aspect.
So I don't have anything interesting to talk about this year, but if there's any way I can help out, lend any of my AV skills or my audio mixing skills, I'm happy to lend a hand if I can.
That would be very much appreciated, especially on the second day.
Yeah, Matt, actually, if you want to just send me an email, it's Rainbow. We can talk about it offline, because I don't want to take up the meeting yapping about it.
Thanks.
I'll probably reach out to you, Rainbow. It's Karen.
Oh, all right, cool, Karen. Happy to help if I can.
Yeah. Yeah, and speaking of which, we definitely appreciate folks from the community helping out with other logistics and stuff for the conference. This year, let's see. This year we contracted out to a third-party graphic designer. So
yeah, Aaron didn't have time for us. He got a new job. So,
but maybe if folks are interested next year for 2020, if you're a graphic designer and you would like to donate or discount your services for the OpenZFS Dev Summit logo stuff for 2020, we would also love to hear from you. Cool. Any more questions or comments on the conference? Cool. And I know it's a different time or different days than last year's. We kind of try to move it around.
You're hired, Joshua.
We try to move it around based on other conferences that are in the area to keep your hotel costs to only expensive as opposed to exorbitantly expensive, which is what happens when, if it's the same week as Salesforce or Oracle conferences or other things like that.
I guess the only other thing to mention is that we did raise the ticket price to $100. There are some discounted tickets available if that ends up being a hardship, but hopefully $100 is not going to be terribly difficult for people.
Yeah, I think we pulled people last year, and at least most of the folks didn't have a problem with that. But yeah, there's some discount tickets available, and if it is a financial burden, then reach out to us, and we can work something out. Also, okay, I see. Yeah, Alan was mentioning that the FreeBSD Foundation may have travel grants as well, and depending on kind of how the fundraising goes, that's something that we would like to be able to offer in the future, but we won't be able to this year. Cool. All right, moving on from the Developer Summit. The other item here was the status of SIMD support on Linux 5.0 kernels. Brian integrated some changes for this. He is not here today. He's on vacation. Let's see. I can talk briefly about it unless somebody else. I don't see anybody else who. Tony, do you have any details on this that you want to share? Anyone else from Livermore? Just kind of brief overview. So in the Linux 5.0 kernel, they made some changes to the interface that ZoL was using to save and restore the like floating point registers that are used by the SIMD instructions. And so ZoL wasn't able to use the fancy math stuff on Linux 5.0 for a while, but then Brian basically like re-implemented that functionality of saving and restoring the registers in ZoL in ZoL itself, and so now it works again, which is great. And this is in master, and it's going to be backported to the 0.8 branch.
What about SIMD? Is it hardware optimization or software?
It stands for single instruction, multiple data. So we're talking about like the Intel SSE and AVX instructions.
It's the vector instructions, the ability to do all the MMX instructions, the ability to do multiple maths at once. This is particularly useful for the checksumming. And for the encryption stuff, this includes the AES-NI support. Without that, the crypto code is really slow.
And there's also accelerated routines for RAIDZ which is particularly useful for RAIDZ reconstruction, but also for just computing the parity. So all that.
And all Intel latest CPU supported?
Yeah. I mean, this kind of stuff has been supported for, I don't know, 10 years in the hardware. Like there's probably at least 10-year-old CPUs that have support for some of these instructions, and the later ones have more, more different fancier instructions. And the ZoL code basically like it tests all the different ways that you can do stuff. It has implementations for each of the kind of subsets of instructions that are available, and then it tests out to see which ones are the fastest.
Okay, and if I right understand, it's a build instruction should be enabled only by build time, and in binaries, if it's supported on build system, it can be wrong on system where it is have no support.
So my understanding is that it is always built, and at runtime, it determines what instructions are available and uses those.
Implemented different switches. If hardware supported, we enable one switch, and if does not have support, we disabled optimization. I mean optimization. For example, AMD old CPU do not have support of some instruction set. And if I build binaries on Intel build system, can it be using on old AMD system?
Yes.
Yes, it can. Specifically, the presence of the instructions is in the CPU ID thing, and it determines at runtime whether it can use any of these sets of instructions and which particular ones. There are multiple versions of the vector instructions, and whether or not it can use the AES instructions. This
Okay,
is
thank you.
at runtime.
It's a runtime defined, right?
Correct. The issue was that for reasons I won't get into, Linux ended up removing the interface ability to have the kernel save the floating point register set, which is a necessary portion of this. As a result, Brian had to go and put the code to do that back in the kernel, and this is dumb, but it does work.
I will be interested in implementation on Illuma's side.
Cool.
How it can be implemented, and okay, thanks for details.
Yep. Yeah. I think this has been in ZoL for quite some time, several years. But as far as I know, it's not available on any of the other operating systems. I imagine it's mostly a matter of kind of doing what Brian did recently, which is figuring out how to save and restore the registers correctly on your specific operating system.
FreeBSD exports the function to do that because they're sane.
Yes. So hopefully that will come to FreeBSD with the changes with the ZoF stuff. Cool.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, it already works in the ZoF stuff.
Cool. Sweet.
Thanks for details.
Yeah, sure thing, Igor. Any other questions about the ZoL SIMD or other platform SIMD stuff?
Also, an additional question: is it using with vectorized RAIDZ the same region and implementation?
Yes, like Matt said earlier, the RAIDZ uses it as well.
Okay,
Yeah, there's accelerated RAIDZ, Fletcher, checksum, and some crypto stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Cool.
And it's worth mentioning the vectorized assembly for Intel is that's all comes from BSD licensed Intel code. So even though it's in the Linux kernel, you can also download the same code directly from Intel as BSD licensed, or it might be in the kernel as dual GPL BSD.
Cool. Let's see. I think I see somebody did a last minute edit here to add one more item to the agenda. So let's
It was
see.
Alan.
All right, Alan. Property to track amount of queued, trim, or unmap.
Yes.
Do you want to?
If you do the kind of on-demand trim feature where you do ZoL trim, you can track the status of how much it's doing. But if you have auto trim on, there's no way to measure how many unmaps are queued but haven't been done yet. And we have a client that has a pool backed by a slow remote device, and they want to be able to tell once all the unmaps are done before they export the pool. And so I was thinking something like the freeing property we have for async destroy, to be able to tell how big the range tree of things we want to unmap is still, or something to that effect.
Yeah. How can you remind me how exactly we keep track of like how that batching works of the continuous trimming? Like I remember there's something where it takes like 32 TXGs worth, and then it like issues all those, and then it's batching up the next set of 32. Is that
I
right?
forget exactly how it works because I was mostly familiar with the FreeBSD one that's gone by the wayside now. But I know there is a delay partly so that if we're just going to overwrite the LBA, we don't bother trimming it. And so on. But
as I recall, that was it was like some kind of fixed number of TXGs. So it might be interesting to have a functionality that's basically like, please wait for all the queued up trimming work to be completed, which would wait for like that number of TXGs or something like that.
Something like ZFull sync command, but for like
exactly. So like maybe it's like a flag to ZFull sync or something like that. You know, you ZFull sync -- trim, and it waits for all the trim activity to be done. I think that might solve the use case a little bit better because it's like a continuous activity of you know, more stuff being queued up to free and then like stuff being freed. Like that value is gonna just be jumping all over the place, I think. And so it might not be very helpful. And you might find that like, you know, the straightforward thing of like wait for the value to go to 0, you actually never reach 0.
Right, or you might miss it or something. Yeah. In their case, there's not that much activity once they're trying to export it, but this needs to be generally applicable. So yes, maybe a flag to sync to just block until it's done makes more sense.
FYI, Delphix is also going to be opening a pull request to add a ZPull wait command that waits for in-progress operations. This is more around waiting for like user-initiated things. So you can say like, wait for scrub to complete, wait for device removal to complete, wait for initialization to complete. It does also have wait for the freeing property to go to 0. And I remember there was some kind of interesting design choices around how exactly that worked. I don't see John on the call, but yeah. In any case, look for that soon. We should be opening that pull request, I think, after Fasco deletion lands.
Is that exist somewhere in the Delphix repo already?
Yeah, you can see it in the Delphix repo. I can send you a link if you want.
That'd be good. Because I guess an interesting one to add to that, which wouldn't solve my use case here, but would just be wait until the manual ZPull trim was done as well.
Yeah, yeah. it would definitely be good to have like a way to wait for the manual trim to complete if there isn't already.
Matt, can be zpool wait is using for import operation
For import,
where we have zpool import command.
zpool import happens synchronously, right?
For example, if we have a large scrub in progress and export this pool and import it again, we can see a large time where the pool import command in progress. It's not done a long time, but ZFS and the pool command can be operational and no ZFS dataset shares available and something else, while the pool import command will not finish.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like a different issue.
Okay, it is have no issue if I correctly using the pool export and reboot server and the pool import again. But if I have a crash of server and try to re-import a big pool after that, I can see a long time for the pool import operation.
Yeah, I understand. It sounds like the zpool import is taking longer than expected.
Yes.
And
yes.
That's because of the in-progress scrub. I don't think that that's related to the zpool wait. It sounds like maybe something is incorrectly either waiting for the scrub to complete or just, I don't know.
Or something corruption.
I don't know.
Yeah, because it seems weird that you'd be able to do some other ZFS operations while an import wasn't complete yet.
Yeah. I mean, I think that probably we should take this to the mailing list or IRC or something to try and get some details and diagnose, what the state of the system is while it's like hung in the import or the import is taking a long time.
Okay, I will try to reproduce it with a large pool about half of petabyte. It's a very large. I have a system where I can try to reproduce it, but time to time it can work correctly, but after some crashes, it's stuck on import operation. And I have to use some recovery operation in the pool import command, and only after that, pool can be operational.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you're on Illumos, just running mdb-k and running : stacks to see where all of the kernel stacks are would help us to figure out like what it's doing while it's waiting for something to happen during the import.
Okay, I will try to crash my system for reproduce it and probably let you know if you have time.
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks.
Thank you.
So getting back to the zpool wait, did we? Were there any more comments on that? I think adding more background activity, being able to wait for more background activities like the manual trim definitely makes sense. And we went through a few iterations of kind of how it would work under the hood. So hopefully we came on something that is should make it straightforward to add that functionality. Cool.
Additional question, what is not in backlog?
Mm-hmm.
What about your job for RAIDZ reconstructed? You have posted a first update for it, but what about progress?
You're talking about RAIDZ expansion, like adding a div to RAIDZ?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't really have any progress to report since that preview that I posted a couple months ago. I was hoping that I would get some takers who would test it out I think I need to ping some folks who had expressed interest earlier, but haven't followed through yet. So yeah, I'm hoping to get some testing. I'm also hoping to get some more time personally to spend on continuing to get it all working. But right now it's definitely like the functionality is there. The undisk format is going to change, so you can't use it in production by any means. But like basically all the functionality is there, and there's a few race conditions that need to be closed, and it needs to be taught about if there are device failures during the expansion. But yeah, you can read some more status than what I posted in the pull request, but I don't have any more progress to report.
Okay, thanks for update. And is it working only with one RAIDZ group? What about if we have some RAIDZ in Stripe in one pool? Can we use it?
Yeah, you can. You should. I mean, I haven't tested that, but nothing in the design that it should just work. Like you should be able to have multiple RAIDZ top-level devices and add one disk to one of them, and then add one disk to another one of them, and then add the second disk to the first one, or whatever. Like it doesn't really care about there being other top-level VDEVs.
And we can just add devices, do not remove it from RAIDZ, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Is it possible to remove some drive from RAIDZ?
Not really.
We posted an issue or pull request talking about what the design of that would look like a couple weeks ago, right? Expanding.
Well, I posted something talking about what it would look like to remove a whole top-level RAIDZ. But kind of the inverse of the RAIDZ expansion is like RAIDZ, I don't know what the right English word is, RAIDZ shrinking. Like to remove one disk from a RAIDZ group, it's not really possible to do that while preserving the redundancy. I mean, obviously, you can do it today without preserving redundancy just by yanking the disk out, right? And you can do that up to n times for RAIDZ n. But if you actually want to preserve the redundancy, then it can't really be done in the same manner as expansion, because like the expansion is just looking at the allocated space and like rearranging it in the disk. It isn't rewriting any existing blocks or parity. It's moving the parity and the existing blocks around, but it isn't like recomputing parity. But if you wanted to shrink it, then you would have to, if you have like 4 disks, or if you have 5 disks and one of them is parity, and now you want to have 4 disks and one of them be parity, like now this one has to be the parity of these other 3, not this one be the parity of these other 4. And there's really no way around that. So it would be much more complicated and,
Okay.
crazy.
And what about removing of one RAIDZ group from pool where we have a stripe of RAIDZ?
Yeah.
The same what we have with mirrored drives. It is possible with mirrored, but impossible with RAIDZ groups.
Yep. So I posted an issue on ZoL, I think, with the design considerations around that. It should be like it's possible, and I think it basically fits into the design of the current device removal stuff. But there's some additional considerations to make sure that we don't break the parity of RAIDZ, because you can imagine like if you have the same example of like a 5-wide RAIDZ1 and you have like data, 4 data and 1 parity, and then if I move that to some other RAIDZ that's also RAIDZ1 that's also 5-wide, if I have one logical block that goes across these 5, and I take the first 3 sectors and I put them on the first 3 sectors here, but then I take the second 2 sectors and put them on those same disks, then if I lose one disk, I'm actually losing two sectors from that logical stripe, right? So
Yes,
some additional
they
restriction.
should be available
Yeah. So like
in the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Like they all need to go onto different disks. They don't have to be. It doesn't have to be like one, like child 0 goes to child 0, but child 0 goes to number 2, then the rest of them have to go to the subsequent, to all different disks.
Yes, we need a reconstructed tree with ZFS blocks and correct it every time if we need a move one block from one group to another group.
Yeah. So you can read the issue that I filed there, which I'll add a link to this. I'll add a link to the document. Should be able to find it in just a moment here. Here we go. Device removal for RAIDZ, issue number 9013. Okay, cool. I just added the link there. I'll write that up better in the notes later. But
Thanks for update, Matt.
Yep, sure thing.
And sorry if it was not for this meeting, but it was interesting.
Yeah, no, it's definitely really interesting stuff around RAIDZ and how all the requirements around it work and impact other features. So I think we have reached the end of the official agenda. So I'm happy to just have more discussion of other random things.
We haven't gone through the feature spreadsheet for a while.
I think that's a good thing that we can do if there are other questions or comments.
I see a lot of excitement out there for that spreadsheet.
Yes, I know. Spreadsheet is so exciting. Let me. I'm going to join the meeting and share my screen. First, I have to find the right link, which all of you were able to do. There we go. Zoom. All right, here we go. I only have the latest $3,000 MacBook, so it takes like 30 seconds to start Zoom. Very cool. So let me share. Let me find only the meeting. Here we go. All right. Hopefully you can see my screen, and I think that if I do this, then it'll get bigger. Nice. Okay. So I think that we are actually, I did take a look at this earlier today and tried to update it. We do have a bunch of things that have been integrated. So I added spacemap log down here, and redacted send and receive are in, trim is in, bunch of things that are in on Linux. Do I understand correctly that on FreeBSD, basically we shouldn't expect any new features to be ported individually before the switch over to ZOF?
It's a little hard to say right now. It depends on what the timeline for that ends up looking like.
Okay.
A couple things might get pulled in to basically keep FreeBSD 12 useful until the soft stuff goes into mainline.
Yeah, like I know encryption, a bunch of work had been done on that already.
Yeah, although it was the main motivator for switching to the ZoF project.
Okay.
Matt, I have some updates. I have ported to GLOS space map and redacted send receive. Also, I let know to Paul Dagnelli about it, and we fixed the panic what I have found on GLOS with ports of redacted send receive. I have several features more on GLOS than on Illumos.
Cool. Thanks for doing that. Do you know? We aren't tracking DLOS separately on here from Illumos. Are you planning to do the upstreaming to Illumos itself as well?
I cannot use Illumos as is because DLOS have a little different features with ZFS, and I'm using ZFS on Linux as the mainstream, and we have some agreements with Brian for in future I want to use the same codebase.
Gotcha. Like
I have no ideas what about Illumos. I think they will try to port some features and changes from ZFS on Linux, but for DLOS in future,
to answer Matt's question, though, you will not be doing that work?
Sorry?
To answer Matt's original question, you are not going to go and do that port yourself to Illumos, is what you're saying, though, right?
Because I cannot build Illumos as is.
That's fine. Just, it's sort of a yes or no question.
Yeah, but I understand. I understood the answer to be no.
I also did. I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page.
Yeah. So I think there is still a pull request that Paul opened against Illumos for the redacted one, and then I heard that Jerry was working on the SpaceMap log port to Illumos, and I know Seraphim, you said you're going to be in contact with him on some MDB stuff.
Yeah.
To make sure that gets in as well.
Basically,
yeah, I do have a workspace with that. That's kind of on the back burner for me right now with some other things, but I should add my name to a few other of these rows that I'm working on kind of before I get to that one.
Cool. Thanks, Jerry.
Yeah, Jerry, I can also ping you to some of the original code that we have from Delphix OS, because the log space map commit from Linux doesn't have some MDB additions that I added, just like a few more D commands for debugging and stuff.
That'd be great. Thanks.
Cool. And I think this time is too early for Jorgen to join us. So I won't ask him for I guess we'll have to check in with him separately on OS X or Windows stuff, but it looks like he's definitely updated a few of these, and he has like the trim of the new way is already in OS X, and so he's continuing to port over stuff from ZFS on Linux.
One of the founding features of ZFS was NFS ACLs. I know on ZFS on Linux that's not fully done yet. There's a PR out there, but I'm just wondering if that should be something that be referenced on this feature spreadsheet or not.
I think the idea of this spreadsheet was to track kind of work that's in progress, rather than like feature requests or future ideas. So I'm not really I don't really know whether that applies to this ACL work for Linux or not. Do you know what the status of that is?
Oh, I know that there's a PR out there that people have been asking for code review on, and yeah, I don't think it's all the way there yet to be put in through. But yeah, just with how we have the other people starting to base off of ZFS, I don't know if that's going to be an issue with NFS not being fully there.
Yeah. Well, I think to your specific question, it sounds like this is a work in progress. Is this the pull request that you're talking about? The NFS before ACL support?
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, let's go ahead and add it then. I think any like significant, noteworthy work we should add in here. We have other kind of similar things. So let me add. There we go. This is. And is this specific to Linux to kind of bring it up to the same functionality that exists on Illumos?
That would be my understanding. I mean, I kind of feel that it was like a base tenant feature of ZFS from the get-go, and it just never had the proper OS backing to really get implemented well on Linux until at some point here within the last couple of years, and they're taking advantage of that time to do that now.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that we could argue that should be in the earlier category then, since, it is present on Illumos, but maybe I'll read some more about how exactly it works to see if I want to move it up there. But yeah, I think tracking that and any other work in progress that folks think should be on here, we can definitely go ahead and add it. Generally, we're talking about features, which I think this definitely is one.
Question is it only NFS version 4 AKL support, or it will be propagated to other tools? For example, core tools have no AKL support correctly for Illumos.
I don't know.
It is just for ZFS, right?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Like you're asking if the NFS v4 support would work on, that's part of this pull request, would work on other file systems that are not ZFS? Is that the question?
No, I have a question about NFS AKL will be similar, the same with Illumos on Linux, or something different?
Well, we already have NFS v4 ACL support on Illumos.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like this is trying to bring it up to parity with what exists on Illumos. So I assume that it would be like the same, at least in terms of how users experience it.
I would hope that and this is up to the ZOL people, that particular pull request, but I would hope that the on-disk format would be the same between Illumos and FreeBSD and ZFS on Linux.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I would think that would be possible, so I agree.
I mean, I think it's all, like the actual data model is like specified in some combination of the NFS v4 protocol and the SMB protocol, I think. So I would expect.
Yeah, but that's not the on-disk protocol. If someone can send me that pull request link, I can't quite read it. I'll make sure I get around to going over it this week.
It's in the spreadsheet here. So if you NFS v4 ACL, work in progress PR. I don't know.
All right.
It's number 7728. Let's see. Okay, we're doing okay on time. Any other works in progress that folks would like to see on here?
Well, there's one that's already there. The Z standard stuff, I finally got a new PR for it, opened up a couple weeks ago.
Cool.
This is basically reporting the latest version from FreeBSD over to ZoL. Could use a little help. It passes all of the Linux build tests, but it fails to build in all of the test builds, which I find slightly confusing.
So,
Wait, what?
Test. So let me just rephrase what you said, which is it compiles, but the tests do not pass.
No. It compiles in all of the compile tests, but it doesn't compile in any of the test builds.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Whoa, that's backwards.
All right. Well,
or maybe it doesn't now, but all of the build tests on CentOS passed, but all of the test builds did not.
It looks like it's a mixture of failures across the board. So,
They just changed the results a little bit too.
Yeah. We probably don't have time to dig into that in this meeting, but maybe someone who's more familiar with those tests might be able to volunteer to help you dig into them.
Yep. And I would also love to get a little more review of the design for it and that type of thing.
Alan, if I wind up getting some spare time at some point, we can probably hook up and we can take a crack at figuring out what the hell's going wrong here on the test versus build stuff. Because I'm somewhat familiar with how that infrastructure works.
And in terms of where you're at with the design and implementation, is this like the final design with all the features that you're planning on?
Basically, yes.
Okay, cool. And in terms of the implementation, what's left to do besides fix the bugs that are?
Yeah, basically, modulo getting all the tests to pass. I think it's finally ready.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and remove the work in progress then, because it sounds like the only work that you have to do is fix the test failures. So let's go ahead and do that.
More additional tests added, I imagine, too.
Yeah, that may be the case.
In particular, the one I commented on about because the compression level is stored as a separate property, making sure that doesn't end up going sideways with, if you have inheritance and you use ZFS rename to move it to a different parent or something, that we don't, with a Z standard compression level set when compress equals LZ4 or something.
Yeah. And did you decide that this is not going to have any impact with the compressed arc plus L2 arc? There was some issue with that, right?
The way things were changed for encryption have mitigated most of the problem.
Okay. Right. And you're storing the level in the header of the block.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
Along with the size.
Cool. Well, that is great news that you made so much progress on the Z standard stuff. I know it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, I started that at the 2016 Dev Summit.
Well, maybe at the 2019, you'll have some major progress to report. Cool. Well, we're almost out of time. Any more features that folks would like to see tracked on here, or things that folks are working on that everyone else should be aware of? All right, then we will end on time per speedy meeting rules of